Thank you for stopping by Ballistic Barbecue. On this video, I'm going to be cooking up a beef brisket on the pit barrel cooker. Let's get going. So I kind of mentioned this on my last video, but my plans for the new year is to kind of revisit my roots. I want to get back into some of the old school barbecue, the low and slow smoking that I started my channel with. I will not be abandoning the hamburger stuff. I know a lot of people want to see that, but I just really need to freshen up my video library. And this was an epiphany I had when I was watching a video by Troy over at T-Roy Cooks. He was doing a brisket video. I started looking back and thought, man, it's been a while since I've done a cook like that. So 2017 is going to be the year of low and slow on Ballistic Barbecue. Again, still doing hamburgers, don't worry about that. So here's my brisket. Started out a little over 16 pounds. I did some trimming on it. I didn't go berserk on the trimming. I was just basically removing those really hard deposits of fat that will not render. I tried to take down the fat cap to about 1/4 of an inch. This right here was actually a battle injury that happened at the plant where it was processed, and it was a flap of meat that you couldn't see through the cryovac. So I trimmed off all the rough edges so they won't burn, and unfortunately, this was one of the casualties there. I had to cut this flap off. On the other side, I basically just kind of got rid of most of the silver skin. Kick this off with seasoning the meat, slather it with Worcester sauce. Yay, Worcester sauce. This is the perfect complement to beef, and I just love using this on any beef cook that I do. This will help the seasoning adhere, but it's also going to leave behind some just killer flavor. Seasoning today is simply salt and pepper, 50-50 kosher salt and coarse ground black pepper. And I want this to enhance the flavor. I don't want it to overpower the flavor, so I'm not going real crazy with the seasoning here. All right, we are now going to insert the hooks. On the pit barrel cooker, you hang the meat. And we are actually using 2 hooks. So on the second hook, I'm going to attach it here, pull on it. I want a lot of tension, and then an insert. And there we go. I'm going to allow this to come up to room temperature. I will meet you in the backyard when we're ready to cook this piece of meat. All right, the pit barrel cooker is ready to go. Let's hang that meat. So I will be wrapping this meat after it pushes through that stall. I'm going to wrap it about 165 using pink butcher paper. So I'm going to insert my meat probe. And I want to get the probe into that thick part of the flat here. Now, as far as wood, I'm actually using wood chips. This is the only smoker that I use wood chips in. It just burns it so efficiently. Other cookers just sort of dissolve them within seconds. And I am using oak. This is oak from bourbon barrels, so pretty cool stuff. Just 1 handful and scattered about. It'll last a very long time. Lid on, and we are cooking. Now, as far as pit temperature is concerned, if you have experience barbecuing but you are unfamiliar with the pit barrel cooker, there's definitely a learning curve. Those of us who do a lot of barbecuing, we're kind of obsessed with managing the temperatures of our pit, you know, adjusting dampers and whatnot. Here, there's a damper at the bottom that you preset according to where you're living, the altitude of where you're cooking. And the holes that the rebar go through are actually kind of calibrated into the equation as well. So this thing just runs itself. There's no temperature gauge on here. And honestly, the worst mistake you can make is monitoring the pit temperature, because you just have to have faith that the creator of the pit barrel cooker, Noah, he did a great job. This thing runs itself. And this is why when it comes to handing out advice of what pit to buy, when someone who's got zero experience comes to me and not a lot of money to spend, this is the #1 suggestion that I make. I mean, you get a lot of bang for the buck here, and it cooks a lot of food at one time, which is cool. So again, I'll be pulling it at 165 to wrap it. Up until then, I'm just going to leave it alone. I'm not even going to look at it. See you in a bit. All right, we are at 165 now. It took 6.5 hours to get there. It's been chugging along really nice here. Okay, so these are nitrile gloves with cotton gloves underneath, so it gives me enough protection to pick this up. Want to get the lid back on so we can keep that heat where we want it. Now we're going to go ahead and wrap this with that pink butcher paper. First thing I'm going to do is remove these hooks. Beautiful color there. Move this off to the side for a sec. So as you see, I have 2 sheets of paper overlapping here. Unsalted beef broth. We want to get this as tight as we can. It's like wrapping up a nice beef package here. All right, now we have to get the barrel prepared. Get the grate in. Get that probe back in center part of the flat. It's important that we put those rebar back in because, again, they play a role in the airflow here. They, kind of seal off the chimney or where the smoke comes out of. Anyway, we are going to allow this to reach 200 degrees. At that point, I'm going to check for tenderness. It should be about ready to pull at that point, but see you in a bit. We just hit 200 degrees. Total cook time was 9 hours. One thing I want to point out, when I put the wrapped brisket in here, I actually put it in fat up. I had meant to put it fat down. I'm just a real advocate of putting the fat towards the heat source to kind of protect the meat. So I flipped it just seconds after I turned the cameras on. I just didn't feel the need to reshoot that scene. Anyway, let's get this guy out. And I went ahead and once it hit 200, I picked up the brisket, and it's nice and soft, kind of flexible, so it feels really tender. Feels good. Yeah, feels like meat jello. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this out, toss it in a cooler with no ice, put a couple towels on top of it. We're going to let this rest for about an hour or so before we slice it up. Meet you inside the house. All right, and here we are. I'm liking what I see here. This may be a little drier than I want it to be, but this is feeling really good. This is the part, that's hanging really close to those coals. So let's check this out. Yeah, a little dry here. This is a pretty long brisket. Now I'm going to go ahead, I'm not doing burnt ends here obviously, but what I'm going to do is slice the point. So I'm going to go ahead and just basically cut it in half where the point and the flat join. All right, let's check this out. Pretty darn tender. Nice pull. Very tender. Wow. Check out some of this flat. Again, passing the bend test. Nice little break there. Yeah, all in all, wow. Good cook. Well, with the exception of that, I mean, literally maybe 2 inches of meat at the very end of that flat. This is a good cook. I mean, just again, very, very juicy, very, very tender. I'm happy with this cook for sure. And that was a 9-hour cook without having to add any wood, without having to add any more charcoal. I just literally lit it, walked away. So Pit Barrel did its job. Again, it's just hard to beat. So much bang for the buck with that cooker. So much bang for the buck. Anyway, guys, thanks for stopping by. See you on the next video. Cheers.